I'm Mia Carter, 34, and I've learned the painful way that sometimes the deepest wounds don't come from strangers. They come from the people who are supposed to love you most. My father, Daniel Carter, was the kind of man who built his identity on discipline, tradition, and pride. For 42 years, he worked at the same aerospace engineering firm, rising from a low-level draftsman to CEO. The company was his life. His two sons, my older brothers, were his legacy. Me, I was just an afterthought. The day before his retirement party, I stood in the bathroom mirror, rehearsing a speech I wasn't even sure I wanted to deliver. A few polite words, a toast, maybe something neutral, safe as expected. Because that's how I'd lived most of my life, trying to avoid giving him more reasons to be disappointed. In the mirror behind me, a gift box sat on the vanity, wrapped in navy blue paper with a silver ribbon, simple yet elegant. Inside was a small but significant gift. At least it used to be significant. As I repeated my lines, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. That no matter what I said, it wouldn't matter. Because no matter what I did, it would never be enough. Before I go on, tell me in the comments, have you ever been dismissed by someone who should have seen your worth? If so, hit the like button and subscribe. This story might feel familiar to you. And perhaps, just perhaps, it will help you see things differently. Growing up in Austin, Texas, the Carter household was orderly, traditional, and stifling. We weren't poor, but affection was rationed like it was expensive. My brothers Matthew and Josh were textbook American boys. Football Boy Scouts, military bound. My father adored them. They could do no wrong. Me, I was quiet, curious, obsessed with space and stars. I smuggled science magazines into my room the way other girls smuggled fashion catalogs. When I was 11, I built a working model rocket from scrap. It actually flew. My mother applauded. My father asked if I'd stolen the parts. I quickly learned I didn't fit his mold. He never said it outright. He didn't have to. It came through in the way he introduced my brothers at dinner parties. This is Matt, just promoted to captain, and Josh, who's now running the advanced testing group. Then he'd glance at me with a polite smile and say, and this is Mia. She's creative. Creative as if it were a flaw. I graduated with honors in aerospace engineering from the University of Michigan while working 2 jobs to cover what scholarships didn't. No one from my family attended the graduation. My father sent a clipped text, congrats. Didn't know it was today. Still, I persisted. I landed a job no one expected me to systems analysis at Caltech's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL. I worked double shifts, filed patents, co-authored papers. By 29, I was leading a department team. By 31, I was the youngest female engineering director in the organization's history. Yet at every family holiday when my father raised his glass, he only toasted my brothers. So when the invitation to his retirement gala arrived, a black tie affair at the Hilton with speeches, awards, and a career montage, I almost didn't go. Almost. But something in me needed to be there. Not for him. For me. That week, I flew back to Austin, stayed in a downtown hotel, and tried to rehearse something neutral, something that wouldn't make things worse, wouldn't hurt. Because what I didn't tell anyone, not even my therapist, was that I still harbored a foolish sliver of hope. That maybe, just maybe, this would be the night he'd say something different, something real. But instead, the night ended with me handing him a wrapped box and walking away for good. But not yet, because the rehearsal was just that, a rehearsal. I still believed in my naive way that if I said the right words, wore the right dress, smiled the right way, I could rewrite the story, mend what was broken. But I didn't yet know what he would say in his speech. And I didn't yet know how deep it would cut, or how freeing it would feel to finally let the blood flow and walk away with my head held high. I arrived at the Hilton 20 minutes early, not because I wanted to, but because anxiety always made me overdo it. The valet reached for my keys and I hesitated. The black Tesla wasn't overtly flashy by Los Angeles standards, but in my family it screamed overachieving tech girl. Still, I handed over the keys and walked in. The ballroom was already half full. Round tables draped in white silk floral arrangements so tall they obstructed conversation servers, moving like shadows. A montage of my father's career played on a loop behind the podium. His younger face flashed on the big screen, standing in front of rocket prototypes, shaking hands with generals, presenting awards to men in identical suits. There were no family photos in the montage, no childhood birthdays, no Christmas mornings, just him in monochromatic power poses, as if emotion would defile his legacy. I stood near the entrance, scanning for familiar faces. My mother caught my eye from across the room and offered a quick, discreet wave, as if to avoid drawing attention. She always had a way of supporting me silently from the margins. "Look who finally made it," a voice boomed behind me. "Matthew?" He looked like a politician in training. Tailored suit, perfectly white teeth, faux tan. Josh followed, giving me a quick nod while adjusting his tie. "Mia," Matthew said, pulling me into a hug that felt like a business transaction. "Still working with NASA or SpaceX or whatever?" "Still at JPL," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "Yeah, that telescope place," Josh added. "Dad always said it was more of a science club than real engineering." I managed a tight smile, still rehearsing. "Yeah, we helped land a rover on Mars, so I guess we're doing something right." They chuckled, not unkindly, just indifferently, then moved on to greet another group of guests. And just like that, I was back in high school, invisible. The girl with the wrong ambitions, the wrong dreams. A server passed with champagne. I took a glass. Across the room, I saw my father, tall, distinguished in his navy suit. He was surrounded by executives and former colleagues, his laughter booming, his hand gestures expansive. The retired king holding court. I waited for him to look my way. He didn't, but he did look at my brothers, clapped Josh on the back, gestured proudly. He looked at my mother, even giving her a rare kiss on the cheek. And when the MC asked everyone to take their seats, he didn't notice me still standing at the edge of the room, silently wondering if I should have come at all. Just as I was about to turn away, I felt a gentle tug on my arm. "Mia." My mother's voice was soft but firm. "Don't go. He'll say something. He has to. Tonight is about all of us." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that maybe this time he would acknowledge more than his 2 sons and their military titles. That maybe after all this time he would speak my name with pride. But then the lights dimmed and the MC stepped onto the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, we honor a titan of industry. A man who has dedicated over 4 decades to the advancement of aerospace. Please give a warm welcome to the one and only Daniel Carter." The applause was thunderous. My father strode onto the stage, waving like a senator, pausing for dramatic effect before speaking. "Thank you. Thank you," he began. "This has been a journey of a lifetime. And I wouldn't be standing here without the support of my amazing family." I sat up straighter. He smiled. "My sons, Matthew and Josh, have always made me proud. Both followed in my footsteps. Both chose to serve, to lead, to build. Everything I've accomplished I owe to them. They represent the Carter name with strength and honor." More applause. People actually stood up to clap. Then his voice shifted, softening, almost nostalgic. "Not every child is cut from the same cloth. And that's okay. Not everyone is made from the same material. Some people wonder." He didn't say my name, but he didn't have to. I felt the blood drain from my face. The words landed with a finality only public humiliation can deliver. My daughter was never cut from the same cloth. That's what everyone heard, or at least that's what they understood. And as the laughter rippled through the room, small, polite, yet sharp, it cut deeper than any silence ever could. I stood up. All eyes were on me. I walked slowly, not to the stage, but to its edge. I held the navy-wrapped box in both hands. My voice didn't waver. "From your greatest failure," I said calmly, handing him the gift. Happy retirement. And I turned and walked away, my heels clicking on the polished marble. Not one part of me rushed, fled, or crumpled. I didn't drive home immediately after leaving the ballroom. Instead, I parked in a quiet corner of the hotel garage. I turned off the engine, my hands frozen on the steering wheel. My chest was tight, but not with panic. Not anymore. What I felt was slower, colder, like standing outside in a blizzard you'd seen coming for years and had only now decided to walk into. On the passenger seat, my evening bag vibrated. A text from my mother. Another from Sophia, my best friend from college, who had begged me not to go to the retirement party. Then another. What was in the box? It was from Josh. I didn't reply. I didn't even open them because I knew. The moment was happening in the ballroom, the one I had walked out of, and the one I hadn't quite left. I knew my father wouldn't open the box immediately. Not in front of the crowd. He was too composed, too image-conscious. But curiosity would eventually win. Because if there was one thing Daniel Carter hated more than weakness, it was not being in control. It wouldn't take him more than 10 minutes. The box was small. Inside was a framed photograph. One he'd probably forgotten existed, a print I'd kept in a dusty folder at the bottom of my closet for over 20 years. It was a picture of the two of us taken when I was 12. We were at the local science fair. I'd built a model of the International Space Station out of soda cans and wires. He hadn't wanted to go. My mother had almost dragged him there. I remember how stiff he looked in the crowd, arms, crossed eyes scanning as if it were a waste of time. But something shifted that day because I won. First place regional. And for 5 minutes he looked proud. Someone had snapped the picture at the exact moment. I held the blue ribbon, his hand rested on my shoulder, smiling. A real smile, not the strained, dry one in his corporate photos. That moment was the last time I remembered him looking at me as if I weren't a mistake. I held onto the picture, waiting for the right moment to give it back to him. Not as a triumph, not as a weapon, but as a reminder of what he had chosen to forget. Underneath the frame, I'd placed a small slip of paper. In simple script, it read, "This was the last time you looked at me like I was worth anything. I spent 20 years chasing that version of you. I'm done now." Back in the car, I didn't cry. I thought I would. But instead I felt something else. A strange quiet. It's hard to explain. It's what happens when you finally stop climbing a mountain that leads nowhere. When you realize the peak you were aiming for was just a painted wall. Beautiful from afar. Empty up close. I picked up my phone not to reply, but to check social media. Sure enough, someone had posted a video clip from the speech. You couldn't hear what I said as I approached the stage. The audio was cut, but you could see the way I handed him the box. Calmly poised in control, then turned and walked away. Not a tremor in my step. The comments were mixed. Some thought it was staged. Some applauded the power move. A few criticized me for ruining a special moment. But what struck me most were the whispers, the private messages from strangers. "I wish I had your courage." He sounds just like my dad. The "from your greatest failure" line hit me hard. I didn't reply. But I read every single one because for the first time in my life, someone was listening. Someone was seeing me. Not just as a footnote in someone else's story, but as the author of my own. And somewhere in that ballroom, Daniel Carter was holding a picture. He couldn't rewrite the image of a girl he had discarded and the version of himself he had buried. The first call came just before midnight. I let it ring, then a second, then a third. By the sixth, I finally looked at the screen. "Mom." I hesitated. My thumb hovered over the green icon. Then I picked up. "Mia," she said, her voice fragile and urgent. "What was in the box?" I didn't answer right away. I could hear voices in the background, muffled, angry. My father's voice was low and sharp, cutting through the air like a blade. "You know, Mom," I said softly,